Hello and thanks for listening. Uh, just gonna get started. Chapter 4 The Compass Tower. As the door to the apartment slid open, Derek, tucked under the arm of the big robot, watched Catherine's facial expression change from horror to relief to unbridled amusement, all in the space of 30 seconds. "Let me guess," she said, putting a finger to her lips. "You're a ditty bag." "Cute," Derek returned as the robot set him gently on the ground. He looked up at the huge black machine. "Thanks for the ride, Avernus." "My pleasure, friend Derek," the robot replied, bending slightly so that the hall could accommodate his height. "But I must ask you to stay away from the underground. It is no place for a human." "I appreciate your concern," Derek said noncommittally. He walked into the apartment, then turned back to Avernus. "Will we see you at the meeting?" "Most assuredly," he returned. "All of us look forward to it with great expectation." "You can go now," Catherine told Avernus coldly, the robot nodding slightly and moving off. The utility robot guard slid quickly to fill the door space of his squat body. Catherine punched the door stud and the panels sliding closed. "You missed breakfast and lunch," she said, moving to sit listlessly on the couch. "Avernus got me something before he brought me back," Derek said. "He got my wounds cleaned up and even let me sleep for a while." Finally, he couldn't ignore her mood any longer. "What's wrong?" "You," she said. "This place. Everything. I don't even know which way's up anymore. Did you find out anything?" Derek spied at the CRT screen set up on the table and walked to stand before it. "It's a place designed for humans," he said, "and the building is going on at a furious pace, as if they're in some kind of hurry to get it finished. I think the buildings might be, I don't know, alive, I guess is the best way to put it." He pointed to the screen. "Where did this come from?" "Rydberg brought it," she answered, "but it only receives—" "What do you mean the city's alive?" "Watch this," Derek said, and ran full speed across the room, banging into the far wall. The wall gave with him, carving inward, then gently pushed itself back into a solid position. "I lay awake all night worrying about you, while you were discovering the walls are made of rubber?" she asked loudly. He turned to her, smiling. "Did you really worry about me?" "No," she replied. "What else?" He walked over and sat on the couch with her. His tones hushed. "I saw the city building itself, literally extruding itself from the ground. I tried to go down there, but Avernus caught me. I think he's in charge down there. The only thing I can figure out is that there are immense mining operations underway below ground, and that the buildings are positronic, like some kind of cellular robots that make up a complete whole. It's fascinating." Catherine was unimpressed. "Did you find a way out of here?" He shook his head. "Not yet," he answered, "but I don't really think that's going to be a problem." "That's because you're so eaten up with your robot friends you can't think of anything else," she suddenly jerked her head toward the wall. "If the walls are robots, I wonder if they can hear us now." Just then the screen on the table came back to life, Rydberg's face filling it. "So you are back, Derek," he said. "Good, prepare yourself. Non-Regard is coming right now to put you to your preliminary trial." "Trial?" Derek said. "Uh-oh," Catherine said, putting a hand to her mouth. "That may be all my fault. I all but dared them to put us on trial. But we haven't even had a chance to investigate yet." She shrugged. "I was trying to find if we could have access to outside communications." She snapped her fingers. "Maybe this means we're gonna get it." "Yeah, maybe," Derek said, but he was skeptical. Robot City was too precious a gem to be hanging out in the ether for anyone to pluck. At this point, he wasn't even sure if he wanted to communicate with the outside. He looked at the screen. It had already gone blank. "Whatever the reason," he said, "I believe we're going to get some answers at this point." "Let's hope they're answers we can live with," she sighed. "I don't want to spend the rest of my life here." Within minutes, the utility robot was knocking on the door. Derek hurried to open it. Euler greeted him, accompanied by a supervisor robot he'd not seen before. This was the robot most closely molded to a human that Derek had seen, with chiseled though blank mannequin-like features. "Friend Derek," Euler said, "Friend Catherine Burgess, may I present Orion, who will be in attendance at our meeting." "Pleased to meet you," Derek said. "Rydberg called it a trial," Catherine said. "This is a great moment for us here," Orion said. "I trust that your stay so far has been satisfactory. I'm doing my best with what little time I have to try and prepare some entertainment for you. We know that humans enjoy mind diversions." "We'd appreciate anything you could do," Derek said. Sure, Catherine said. How about conjuring up a radio for us to call the outside for help? Oh, that's quite impossible, Orion said. That's what I thought, Catherine answered. I have a present for each of you, Euler said, extending his right arm. Then we must be off to the meeting. Derek moved to the robot. His pincers held two large watches dangling on gold chains. You may know the time here now, Euler said. It is of importance to humans, and so to us. We will do more to make you feel comfortable in this regard. Derek took the watches, giving one of them to Catherine. They had square faces encased in gold. On both of them the LCD faces read 3:35. "They run on a 24-hour day," said Euler. "We thought it would be more comfortable for you if we adjusted the length of our hour than if you had to adjust to 20 1/2 hour day. Our hours, decads and centads, are approximately 85% of standard." Derek walked out onto the veranda and looked into the sky. The sun had already passed its apex and was slowly crawling toward the eventual shadows of evening. "Right on the money," he said, returning to the apartment. "You doubted it?" Orion asked, looking at Euler. "Do you understand now?" Euler said to him. "Interesting," Orion said, cocking his head in almost human fashion. "We must go," Euler said, and hurried out of the apartment, the others following. They rode the elevator to street level and boarded a multi-car tram that had no apparent driver. It started off immediately when they were seated. Euler turned to Derek, who sat with Catherine behind him and Orion. "You put yourself in extreme danger last night," the robot said. "Why?" "I've a better question," Derek returned. "If this is such a perfect human world, why was it so dangerous?" "Spacer worlds conquered weather problems eons ago," Catherine interjected. "For you to have them in such an advanced culture makes no sense." Orion turned to her and bowed his head. "Thank you for calling our culture advanced." "The weather," Euler said, "is quite honestly part of our overall problem right now. It is under our control, but also not under our control. Unfortunately, for security reasons, we cannot discuss it in detail." "Great," Catherine said. "Everybody can do something about the weather, but nobody talks about it." "To answer your original question," Derek told Yoder as he watched them move in a direct line toward the tower where they had initially materialized, "I have no memory and no past. My curiosity, my search for answers about myself leads me to do things not necessarily my best interest." "Amnesia?" Euler asked, "or something else?" Derek looked at him in surprise. "What else?" The robot answered his question with another question, an old one. "How, then, did you come to our planet?" Derek realized that the robot was playing word games with him that tied directly to the word games Derek had initiated the night before. He decided to keep playing. "What did the dead man, David, say when you asked him that question?" "He said he didn't know," Euler replied, then turned back around in his seat. Over his shoulder he said, "He claimed he had amnesia." The tram came to a halt beside the mammoth pyramid that dominated the landscape of Robot City, the place the inhabitants called the Compass Tower. Catherine put a hand on Derek's arm, squeezing, and he knew she had the same fear that he'd felt. Here, about halfway up the tower, was where they'd hidden the key to Berhellion that had brought them to the city. Had the robots found it? Were they confronting them with the evidence, or worse yet, taking it away? But Euler said nothing of the key. Instead, he simply climbed from the tram and led them directly to the base of the tower, a tower that Derek had surmised was solid. He'd never been more wrong. At the robot's approach, an entire block of the solid matter that formed the base simply melted away, leading into the structure. Another example of Derek's theory about the intelligence of the building materials themselves. They moved into the pyramid through a short, dark hallway that emptied into a maze of crisscrossing aisles, and stairs that in turn led off in all directions within the structure. "Try and memorize our path," Derek whispered to Catherine, "just in case." "In case of what?" she asked. "In case you haven't figured it out, we're not going anywhere." "This is the most important building in our city," Euler said, as he took them up a series of stairs and escalators that zigzagged at every landing and culminated in a long, well-lit hallway. "This is where decisions are made, where understanding takes place." They walked through the hall. Orion hurried ahead and disappeared down some stairs. The surrounding walls glowed lightly with connecting hallways intersecting every 10 feet. They followed Orion's path, changing direction several times before finding themselves standing in a large, well-lit room, whose four walls angled in toward a ceiling, 15 meters above, that poured in sunlight like a skylight. The floor of the room was tiled in the form of a large compass, its 4 points forming on the cornerstones of Robot City. In the center of the compass, under the direct rays of the sun, stood 6 robots in a circle, arms outstretched, their pincers grasping those of their neighbors on either side, with space left for one more, Euler. "This is the place where we seek perfection," Euler said, and joined the circle, closing it. "It's almost religious," Derek whispered to Catherine. "Yeah," she replied. "It gives me the creeps." Derek looked around the room. There were no chairs or tables, nothing upon which a human being could rest. The walls were inserts, with CRTs jammed side to side around the entire perimeter. Each screen showed its own view of Robot City. Many showed evacuation sites, the largest movers pushing and leveling soil. Other pictures were of extrusion plant he had visited, and he was led to conjecture that there might be more than one. There were pictures of the reservoir he had splashed into, and strange underground pictures taken through the eyes of roving cambots that showed mining tunnels, kilometer of deserted tunnel. And finally, many of the screens simply showed the pink-tinged blue of the sky. "You have come to this place," Euler said loudly, "to help us in our search for correctness, for perfection, for completeness. We are the keys, human and robot, to this energy of spirit. Synononics is our goal. I will introduce the rest of us, and we will begin." "Synononics?" Catherine whispered. "Man and machine," Derek replied, "the greater than the sum of its parts." "It is religious," he rasped. "And how did you know that?" Derek shrugged. "This all feels so comfortable to me." "You know Rydberg," Euler said, "and Avernus and Arion." The robots nodded as their names were called. "The rest of us, Waldire." "Good day," said a squat roundish robot with wheels. "Dante." "I welcome you," Dante said, his telescopic eyes sticking out several inches from his dome. "And Wooler." A magnificent golden machine bowed formally without removing his pincers from his neighbors. "We are honored," Wooler said. "We will answer what questions we can from you," Euler said, "and hope that you will do the same." "If, as you say," Derek told him, "we are looking for truth and perfection, then our meeting will be fruitful. I'd like to begin by asking you why there are certain areas of life here that you will not discuss with us." Rydberg spoke. "We are in standby security mode. That renders certain information classified by our programming." "Did our arrival prompt the institution of the security mode?" Catherine asked. "No," Euler said. "It was an effect when you arrived. If, in fact, you arrived when you said you did. We must ask again how you came to be here." Derek decided to try a little truth. It couldn't hurt as long as no mention was made of the key. Perhaps a dose of truth might get them to open up about the key's existence. "We materialized out of thin air atop this very building." "And where were you before that?" Wooler the Gold One asked. Derek rocked slowly around the circle, studying his questioners. "A space way station named Rockcliffe near Nexon, right on the edge of the settlement world's quarantine zone." "Orion," the mannequin asked, "by what means, then, did you use to get from one place to another?" "No means," Derek said. "We were simply transported here." They were silent for a moment. "This does not coordinate with any information extant in memory," Avernus said, his large dome following Derek's progress around the circle. "You found no ship that could have brought us," Derek said, "and I'm sure you've searched." "That is correct," Euler said, "and our radar picked up no activity that could have been construed to be a vessel in our atmosphere." "I can't explain it beyond that," Derek said. "Now, you answer a question for me. Where did you come from?" "Who are you addressing?" Euler asked. "All of you," Derek said. Avernus answered. "All of them except for me were constructed here on Robot City," he said. "I was awakened here, but I believe I was constructed elsewhere." "Where?" "I do not know," the large robot replied. "My first I/O memories are of this place. Nothing in my pre-programming suggested anything of an origin." "Are you trying to say," Catherine broke in, that all of you know nothing but the company of other robots, that your entire existence is here." "Correct," Rydberg said. "Our master of programming is well aware of human beings and others and their societies, but no formal relationship exists between our species." "Then how did you come to build this place?" Derek asked. "How then did it become important to you to make a world for humans?" "We are incomplete without human beings," Waldeier said, his squat dome swiveling to Derek and then Catherine. "The very laws that govern our existence revolve around human interaction. We exist to serve independent thought, that higher realms of creativity that we are incapable of alone. We discovered this very quickly without being told. Alone we are simply exists to no end, no purpose. Even artificial intelligence must have a reason to utilize itself. This world is the first utilization of that intelligence. We've been building it for humans in order to make the perfect atmosphere in which human creativity can flourish to the greater completeness of us all. Without this world we are nothing. With it we are vital contributing factors to the ongoing evolution of the universe." "Why would that matter to you?" Catherine asked. "I have a theory about that," Dante said, his elongated eyes glowing bright yellow. "We are the product, the child, if you will, of higher realms of creative thought. It seems impossible that the drives of that creative thought wouldn't permeate every aspect of our programming. We want for nothing, we desire nothing, yet the incompleteness of our inactivity makes us feel, for lack of a better word, useless and extraneous. Given the total freedom of our own world, we were driven to function in service." Derek suddenly felt a terrible sadness well up in him for these unhappy creatures of man's intelligence. "You've done all this, even though you never know if any people would come here?" "That is correct," Euler said. "Then David came, and we thought that all would be right. Then came his death, then the calamities, then you, suspects of murder. We never meant for anything to be this way." "When you say calamities," Derek said, "are you speaking of the problems of the storms?" "Yes," Rydberg said. "The rains threaten our civilization itself, and it's all our own fault. We are breaking apart from the inside out, and nothing to be done about it." "I don't understand," Derek said. "We don't expect you to, nor can we tell you why it must be this way," Euler said. Derek thought about the hot air pumping through the reservoir. "Is the city's rapid growth normal?" he asked. "No," Euler said. "It coincides with David's death." "Is it because of David's death?" "We do not know the answer to that," Euler said. "Wait a moment," Catherine said, walking away from the circle to sit on the floor, her back against the north wall. "I want to talk to you about our connection with all this, and why Whiteberg called this a preliminary trial." "You were the one who first mentioned the concept of a trial," the robot replied, leaning out of the circle to stare at her. "I only use that term to make you feel comfortable." "Okay," she said, "I'll play. You say this is a civilization of robots that have never had any human interaction, yet obviously someone gave you your initial programming and ability to perform the work of the city." "Someone? Yes," Euler said. "Someone who's in charge," she said. "No," Euler said. "We are in group communication with our master programming unit, but it simply provides us information from which logical decisions are made. Our overall philosophy is service, our means are logical. Other than that, our society has no direction." "Then why put us on trial at all?" she asked. "Respect for human life is our first law," Rydberg said. "When we envisioned our perfect human-robot world, we saw a world in which all shared respect for the first law. We envisioned a system of humanics which would guide human behavior, just as the law of robotics would guide our behavior. Of course, we have been working entirely from theory, but we have made a preliminary list of 3 laws that provide a basis for an understanding of humans." "Cute," Catherine said. "Now they want us to follow the laws of robotics." Derek interrupted her complaint. "Wait, let's see what they've come up with. Thank you, friend Derek. Our provisional first law of humanics is, a human being may not injure another human being, or through an action allow a human being to come to harm." "Admirable," conceded Derek, "even if it isn't always obeyed. What is your second law?" Rydberg's hesitation before answering gave Derek the clear impression that the robot wanted to ask a question of its own, but his took precedence under the second law of robotics. Second law of humanics is, a human being must only give reasonable orders to a robot and require nothing of it that would needlessly put it into the kind of dilemma that may cause it harm or discomfort. Still admirable, but still too altruistic to always be obey. And the third law of humanics is, a human being must not harm a robot or through an action allow a robot to come to harm, unless such harm is needed to keep a human being from harm or to allow a vital order to be carried out. Not only is your experience of humans limited, so is your programming, Derek said, shaking his head. These laws might describe a utopian society of humans and robots, but they certainly don't describe the way humans really behave. We have become aware of that, said Rydberg. Obviously, we're going to have to reconsider our conclusions. Since your arrival, we've been subjected to human lies and deceit, concepts beyond our limited understanding. But the first law must stand, Ernest said loudly, his red cells glowing brightly. Human or robot, all are subject to respect for life. We certainly aren't arguing that point, Derek said. No, Catherine said, standing angrily and walking back to the circle. What we're talking about is the lack of respect with which we're being treated here. Derek began. Shut up, Catherine said. I've been listening to you having wonderful little philosophical conversations with your robots buddies, and I'm getting real tired of it. Listen, folks, first thing I demand is that you give us access to communications with the outside and that you let us leave. You have no authority to hold us here. This is our world, Mueller said. We mean no offense, but all societies are governed by laws, and we fear you have broken our greatest law. And what if we have? She asked. What happens then? Well, Mueller said, we would do nothing more than keep you from the society of other humans who you could harm. Great. So how do you prove we did anything in order to hold us? Process of elimination, Walter said. Friend Derek has previously suggested some other possible avenues of explanation, but we feel it is incumbent upon both of you to explore them. Not because we are trying to make it difficult for you, but because we respect your creative intelligence more than we respect our own deductive intelligence in an area like this. Derek watched as Catherine ran hands through her long black hair and took several deep breaths. She tried to get herself together and in position to work with this. All right, she said more calmly. You said before that you won't let us see the body. No, Euler said. We said that we can't let you see the body. Why? There was silence. Finally Rydberg spoke. We don't know where it is, he said. The city began replicating too quickly and we lost it. Lost it? Derek said. Derek knew it was impossible for a robot to be or look embarrassed, but that was exactly the feeling he was getting from the entire group. We really have no idea where it is, Euler said. Derek saw an opening and quickly took it. In order to do this investigation and prove that we're innocent of any first-law transgressions, we must have freedom of movement around your city. We exist to protect your lives, Euler said. You've been caught in the rains. You know how dangerous they are. We can't let you out under those conditions. Is there advance warning of the rain? He asked. Yes, Rydberg said. The clouds build in the late afternoon and the rain comes at night. Suppose we not go out when the conditions are unfavorable. Wooler, the golden robot, said. What are human promises worth? Catherine pushed her way beneath the hands of the robots to stand in the center of the circle. What are our lives worth without freedom? Freedom? Wooler echoed. A dark cloud passed over the skylight, plunging the room into a gray, melancholy half-light, illumination provided by a score of CRT screens, many of them now showing pictures of madly roiling clouds. The circle broke immediately, the robots agitated, hurrying toward the door. Come, Euler said, motioning to the humans. The rains are approaching. We must get you back to shelter. There is so much to do. What about my suggestion? Derek called loudly to them. Hurry! Euler called, waving his arm as Derek and Catherine walked toward him. We will think about it and let you know tomorrow. And if we can investigate and prove our innocence, Catherine said, will you then allow us to contact the outside? Euler stood still and fixed her with his photocells. Let me put it this way, he said. If you don't prove your innocence, you'll never be allowed to contact the outside. And thus ends Chapter 4. Hope you enjoy, I suppose. Bye.